going to run you through a lot of practical implementation of implementing the ecological reserve. I'm more sort of a messenger to tell you a nice story that it can be done. So just some context. On our far left over here, this is the Kruger National Park. On our right hand side is Mozambique, so it's a trans-boundary system that the rivers flow from west to east. But just some context that these are strategic water source areas, so the one the escarpment as it goes into the Lowveld. So the rivers flow through the park from west to east. The present ecological state of the rivers, so you'll see the sort of red, orange, yellow, and green and blue rivers, and that gives us a good planning idea to say that some rivers aren't pristine, some rivers are almost completely degraded in E, the ones that are red, and that gives you a good idea of where you can focus your resources or where attention is needed. On your far right, this is the Infepus. I think you're mostly familiar with the freshwater ecosystem priority areas. Again, this gives us a good idea for planning purposes to actually show you in a national park that the big green blobs are, particularly for aquatic ecosystems, very important habitats that require conservation. The rivers in the Lowveld Kruger Park are very diverse. So these are just some of the fish species there. There's about 45 fish species in the Lowveld. Again, it's birds, amphibians, frogs, you name it. It's quite very biodiverse. I think a lot of the Western Cape rivers, you'd be lucky if you get 5 indigenous fish. So it's quite exciting actually to work with such a diversity of species. So I'll give you some context and sort of just give you an idea of the complexities that we do have in those Lowveld catchments. This is the Olifants River catchment. It's probably the workhorse catchment of the country. I think quite a large percentage of the country's GDP is generated in the Olifants River catchment. This is sort of on the Highveld, you get Witbank and Dalmas, and it's not a very attractive place. You have no reason to go there. But anyway, there's a lot of power stations there, Olumadupis, all of that is there. Kusile, all of that is there. And then as it goes through, there's probably the largest irrigation or agriculture and irrigation in the catchment, and it flows through the Kruger Park and then into Mozambique as well. But these are the dams in the catchment. So again, think about how do you manage all of these things. Okay, data is probably a bit outdated. This was done probably 5-6 years ago. But these are only the registered dams that you know. There's probably a lot of illegal dams that are there. It's about 230 to 60, 230 small dams, 56 large dams. These are huge dams like Fabershilo, the Whip Dam, really, really big dams. Basically, the take-home message here is that there's not sort of a natural hydrology anymore in the catchment. It is all impounded and it's all artificial flow, so to say. These are mines and quarries, again, outdated data, but generally almost close to 400 mines, 250 quarries, and they mine everything in this catchment from gold, silver, titanium, zinc, vanadium, nickel, palladium, lead, iron, gold, copper, anything you can think of, they basically mine in this catchment. Okay, add on to all of that, there's water transfer schemes, so they're taking water out of the catchment and putting it or transferring it. I think not more famously, but more now is in Polokwane. There's a water shortage in Polokwane, but basically Polokwane is growing at a phenomenal rate. There's not enough water in Polokwane. They transfer the water out of the Olifants catchment into Polokwane. Again, in context, I'm just giving you some context, that the East climate context, we've experienced the biggest drought the country has experienced probably 5 years ago from about 2015-16. And you can see over here, you know, that was sort of, it was an extreme drought, I think across the country, we're all quite aware of that drought, and this put a lot of stress on the system during that time. Again, take-home message here is also that there's cycles, so there is the wet and dry cycles, normally about 10 years or so, 7 to 10 years. You get a dry cycle and you get wet cycles for about 7 to 10 years at a time. We do have some challenges. Again, it's adapting to managing rivers. You can't manage it in a very set way or rigid way. You have to adapt, you have to learn, and you have to change. On your left, that was the Sabi River in the 1980s. Maybe just look at the bridge, you can sort of see. In 2000 we had a huge flood, and this is what the river looks like now. It looks a bit different now, but generally it's a different river. It's a completely different river. You can't manage it the same way you're managing it in the 80s. Again, what's your baseline from Karlstorp? if you were born and you knew the park, you would think that that's a good condition. This was a natural event. Floods happened. This is my baseline and not 1980s. This is not my baseline. There are some challenges. This is the Olifant River looking out from Olifant's camp. This is how it normally should be there. In 2006, the river stopped flowing, and it didn't stop flowing for a day or two. This was close to about 3 months, 4 months that the river stopped flowing. The big Olifant River in Crocodile stopped flowing. And this was not because of drought. It wasn't a drought in 2006. This was poor management in the catchment. And then there are more challenges and game changers. This is in the Olifant's Gorge. All that you're seeing on the sandbank there are crocodiles. There's about huge, massive crocodiles there. In 2008, a lot of the crocodiles died. I think close to 400 of them died in an event. Let's call it that. The take-home message is that this happened. We didn't see this coming. We were monitoring, we were measuring, we were going crazy for years. This happened on us. Nothing flagged us to say, here's a massive event going to take place where 400 of your crocodiles are going to die. And nothing kills a crocodile. They're tough as nails, man. You don't kill a crocodile. So if the crocodiles are taken out of the system, things are seriously wrong. We have to question ourselves to say, what's our monitoring worth? We didn't even see this coming. Yeah? But going into it now, there was the National Water Act of 1998. This is a very important piece of legislation for managing water resources. In 1998, it was probably the most progressive water act in the world at that time. Why it was that progressive is that it was the only country in the world which the environment had a right to water. Okay, in a lot of other countries, the environment doesn't have a right, so to say. In South Africa, it does. That the environment has a right to water, and that is the reserve. In other countries in literature, we talk about e-flows or environmental reserve and stuff like that. In South Africa, we refer to it as the ecological reserve or the reserve. This is an illustration of the reserve. So basically, you got a bucket of water. Say the bucket is full, you sort of allocate the water to various users, international obligations, and as the bucket gets more empty, you sort of kick. They don't get their water, but there has to be a minimum amount of water in the river for the environment. It's the environment's right to have that water. Okay, so this is the law. It's not some theory that we thought up. This is the law. Okay? Basically, all around the country, to sort of implement the reserve or give the reserve determination to rivers to see that this is the minimum amount of water that is to flow in this river. The Department of Water Sanitation goes around the country, they go to various catchments, and they start doing a reserve determination or resource classification. It's a huge participatory process with a lot of stakeholders. It takes a long time, about 2 years to do it. And at the end of it all, they come up with what they call the resource classification, the reserve determination, the RTM and the RQOs. So basically, they gazette the minimum requirements that needs to be met in that river. Okay, so for an example, is the flow. So you see on your top right, that would be what flow needs to be in the Olifants River at that month, October, November, December. That's the minimum flow that needs to be in the river. If you go on down, this is for water quality, so they do this for all the rivers in the country, a lot of variables, and they'll say, these are your limits on your far right now, for phosphates, for nitrates, and total ammonia in that river, which a lot of it was done. That's an example for the Olifants. Then at the bottom, they'll give you your ecology as well. They tell you your fish, your macroinvertebrates, your habitats, your geomorphology, and your riparian vegetation. They basically set the limits for you, and these articles get gazetted. So it becomes the law. Okay? So implementing all of that is to implement the reserve and to sort of meet your compliance with the RQOs. We're going to look through how to actually do that. I'm not going to explain, it's going to take up all my time. So thank you, Samantha, for explaining a lot of this. Read the paper. So basically, this is how we did it. It's a huge adaptive management framework about implementing the reserve and how it was done. This has largely been done in the Nkomati catchment. I'm going to go through it now. It probably gets a bit more exciting on how we are doing it there. So basically what it did was, and this took a very, very long time to do. It didn't take 2 weeks, 3 years, 4 months. It took probably more than 20 years to get it where it is now, with a lot of hard work and a lot of participation from a lot of actors. So the IUCMA, that's the catchment management agency that is there, is centered around them, but these are all your important stakeholders in the process of making sure that mineral requirements are met within the river. So KNP is there, the dam, Queen Dam on the Crocodile River, your irrigation board, the Department of Water Sanitation, local, national, and Mozambique, because there's a communication between all these stakeholders all the time is vital and critical to make this happen. Again, to build those relationships took a very, very long time to get it. So how we do it, basically, the red line, dotted line is your reserve. We have little water levels there, sort of yellow, blue, and all those colors. Every day we look at the flow. So the blue line is the flow. Every day somebody looks and sees what is the flow on the river at a specific gauge. If they see that the flow is coming towards the reserve, they have an action to do. Okay, so SANParks actually does the Jacques Venter. He says, oh my goodness, listen, we're getting close to the reserve. Let me phone the CMA. He phones the CMA, tells the CMA this is the situation. The CMA then comes up with an action, and it all gets reported like this. Every month we get this. Detailed, you can quickly squiz through it. But this is last month, 2022 September. These are all stakeholders. That's ourselves, that's a big salati sugar and stuff. These are all stakeholders in the catchment getting involved on how to manage the river systems in there. So this is very, very important. This has been going on for almost 12 years now. That every month you get a river log about all the decisions, who made the decision, why they made the decision, is logged like this. Okay? Most recently, Sharon and the team developed Inwards or Flow Tracker. So now you have it on your phone. So all your EWR flows, water quality is all on your phone now. So all stakeholders can have it on their phone and they can immediately see what the situation is at the weir, at the river that they're interested in. Okay, we're doing a lot of this. Managing, I'm still on the groups, on WhatsApp groups. You'll see on top, Sabi River, Low Olifants, Revuvu. There's about 50 to 60 participants per group. And we basically manage the river now in real time on WhatsApp groups. So it's not go sit in a meeting, write an email, wait for some. We're all just doing it now on WhatsApp, making a decision. You can see the timelines. If you read what's going on, you can see, oh, okay. They're making decisions in less than 5 minutes. Senior people are making decisions. There was a time on WhatsApp group for the Olifants River that the DG was on the WhatsApp group to make decisions faster. Okay, so this is really how it works, and it is working this way. Again, you can look at your dam levels. Any dam you want to look at, you can sort of adjust it as you want to, and you can see where you are, and you use all of this for all your planning as you're doing things going forward. We also do the ecological monitoring, which I did for many years in the park, and this again feeds into your reserve to say, I met my flows, I met my ecology is looking good. Okay, that's basically what the data would look like. So just to wrap up, for this to happen, I think it's difficult to do this in 13 minutes, but for it to work and to implement it, the only place where they are implementing this in the country is in the Nkomati. They need to do it in all the other provinces, with all the other rivers. They know when you're doing it, I don't know, they don't know how to do it. You can learn a lesson from here that it has been done, people are doing it, but there are some preconditions for it to work. There's trust and transparency, and it doesn't take a day to do that. It takes you 20 years to build trust with all your stakeholders. Okay, transparency, that river log sheet, the WhatsApp groups, it's all open. Everybody can see. There's not, I don't know what happened, who made this decision, are you hiding stuff from me? It's all real time. Everybody can see what is going on, and you get full detailed reports like that every month about every decision that was made. There's full transparency there. You have to have the capacity for adaptive, transformative learning. So you need to want to learn and transform. If you're very rigid and you don't want to do anything, you don't want to go and have the broader catchment participate in the management of your rivers, it's not going to work. And you need champions. Without a champion to actually drive this process, you're not going to get it right. And staff turnover is a bad thing. You need somebody to stay there for 20 years to see it through, and that person has to be dedicated. And people in other institutions also need to stay there for a while, not every 3 years there's somebody else there. It's hard to keep it going. That sort of all happened in the Nkomati system. So yeah, it can happen, it does work, and there are lessons to learn from the Nkomati. Thank you.